Everybody, I just wanted to repost the interview with JD Vance on Face the Nation today with Maggie Brennan. When I ran it during my podcast earlier today, there's some technical difficulties and I lost audio. So I'm just going to play it again, remix right now. JD Vance on Face the Nation earlier on Sunday.
The child tax credit, and we should expand the child tax credit. If you think about what the child tax, well, we think it should be bigger. I think President Trump and I believe in expanded child tax credit, but we also importantly want to actually get this thing done. The child tax credit has languished thanks to the Biden administration because Harris has failed to show fundamental leadership. Chuck Schumer's been unable to get it through the United States Senate, and we want to have a more pro-family policy. Now you asked, well, I think one of the things that you can do is make it bigger per child. I think we'd love to see it at a higher dollar value, and again, President Trump and I have proposed that. I mean, look, I'd love to see a child tax credit that's $5,000 per child, but you, of course, have to work with Congress to see how possible and viable that is. We've also proposed legislation, Margaret, to end this practice of parents getting these surprise medical bills where they go to the hospital, they have a baby, they chose an out-of-network provider, and they come home with unexpected bills. I've actually sponsored legislation to end that practice. So we have a whole host of pro-family policies that are out there. And again, on the Harris administration, I got to push back against something a little bit, Margaret, because when these comments where I said parents should pay lower taxes via the child tax credit came out, the Harris administration immediately jumped and said, we disagree with this. The Harris campaign said, we disagree with this. So did they want the elimination of the child tax credit, or were they just being careless in responding to remarks that I made 3 years ago? I don't know. They should clarify it, maybe in an interview with you, but of course Kamala Harris refuses to do interviews with anybody. I'd like to have a broad-based family policy and a broad-based child tax credit, Margaret. Again, we've talked about doing this for a long time. President Trump has been on the record for a long time supporting a bigger child tax credit. And I think you want it to apply to all American families. I don't think that you want this massive cutoff for lower income families, which you have right now. You don't want a different policy for higher income families. You just want to have a pro-family child tax credit. Well, what I've opposed is one model of child care. We, of course, want to give everybody access to child care, but look, in my family, I grew up in a poor family where the child care was my grandparents. And a lot of these child care proposals do nothing for grandparents. If you look at some of these proposals, they do nothing for stay-at-home moms or stay-at-home dads. I want us to have a child care policy that's good for all families, not just a particular model of family, and that's what I've said. That's exactly what I proposed. I'm just saying that I don't want us to favor one family model over another. If you've got grandparents who are at home taking care of the kids, I think they deserve to be treated the same way as other family models by their government. Well, look, I think that certainly some families are going to choose that, but again, some families are going to choose grandparents and so forth. I think our view...
Well, that's child care. That's different than
our view. Well, very often preschool is child care, is at least a form of child care. I know that when I went to preschool, my parents used... You're hoping the kids get a good education, but you're also doing it because you want to provide child care for your kids. I don't think there's anything incongruous or inconsistent about that. And I think, look, we believe that we want to make it easier for American families, Margaret, to make their own choices on this stuff. When we talk about school choice, of course, school choice would apply to all families. It would apply to all parents. And we would just want parents to have choices. Yeah. I think that we want parents to have choices, Margaret. Like I just said, we want them to be able to make the choices that make the most sense for their family. For some, it's going to be preschool. For some, it's going to be daycare. For some, it's going to be having the kids stay at home a little bit longer. We just want the government to treat everybody equally, regardless of whatever education or family model you have. And my attitude on this is if people want to attack me, attack my policy views, they're welcome to. I signed up for it. My wife didn't sign up for it, and by the way, she's way out of their league, the people who are attacking her. So I wish they would just keep their mouths shut or at least focus on me. But look, it's the nature of public life in this country. My wife's pretty tough, and she knows what we signed up for. Yeah, I get pissed off sometimes, certainly. Yeah. When people attack your family, and certainly attack your family for something that no person can control. And I do think that there's been this thing in America where we've said that we should judge people based on their skin color, based on their immutable characteristics, based on things that they can't control. I frankly think that, unfortunately, a lot of people on the left have leaned into this by trying to categorize people by skin color and then give special benefits or special amounts of discrimination. The Harris administration, for example, handed out farm benefits to people based on skin color. I think that's disgraceful. I don't think we should say you get farm benefits if you're a black farmer, you don't get farm benefits if you're a white farmer. All farmers, we want to thrive, and that's certainly the President Trump and JD Vance view of the situation. But I do think, unfortunately, when our leaders divide us by race, you're going to have hate on the left side of the political spectrum, you're going to have hate on the right side of the political spectrum. We should just judge people based on individual characteristics and based on merit, and that's certainly what President Trump and I want to do. President Biden and Harris have certainly accelerated it. I don't think you've seen anything like what we've seen from Kamala Harris when it comes to handing out government benefits based on people's immutable characteristics. The actual legal enshrinement of discrimination in this country, we haven't seen anything like it in the last 30 or 40 years. Certainly back in the 60s and 50s, we all look at that as a period that we wanted to get away from, and in some ways the Harris administration has re-implemented it. I think it's pretty disgraceful. Is it a person attacking me personally, or is it government policy that discriminates based on race? That's what I really worry about. Well, I think that we should bring people here who helped us and have been properly vetted, and that's very, very important because a lot of the people the Biden administration has brought in have not been properly vetted.
Are you talking about Afghan vets?
And I think the most important, certainly the Biden administration has let in Afghan nationals who say that they supported Americans but actually did not. We also remember, Margaret, there was a lot when we were in Afghanistan, a lot of so-called blue on green or green on blue violence where people who were allegedly supposed to help us killed American troops. So I want them in our country? Of course I don't. In fact, I wish they weren't on this earth anymore. So we have to be careful about who we let into this country. I think that we should help them. Some of them don't want to come here, by the way, Margaret. Some of them would like us to give them safety in another country. No, absolutely I'm saying in this case, Margaret, because we're not properly vetting the people that are being let in through these refugee programs. What President Trump said is very important. You cannot show up at an American consulate and say, I helped the Americans, go let me in, has been scandalous and not properly vetting these people. Donald Trump is exactly right. And again, just because they helped us, allegedly, doesn't mean you have to let them come to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Maybe some of them should go to other countries. Maybe we should help some of them in their own country. And President Trump's exactly right about this. In fact, we know beyond a shadow of doubt that some of the people who have been led into this country are on the terrorist watch list. That is disgraceful.
I think
Trump
now
is
you're
right that we should
conflating
stop
a few
it.
different things. You are now talking about people who have come in through the southern border versus people who were vetted and worked with U.S. intelligence.
We have certainly let in people through refugee resettlement who should not be in this country. Absolutely we have. We have not properly vetted everybody who's come in. There's also been public reports of people who have come in through the refugee resettlement process who are actually on some kind of terrorism watch list, who importantly were not actually helping Americans even though they claimed. We got to be careful, Margaret. We have a country to protect, and I have 3 young children. I don't want people walking around the streets of this country who said they served the United States, but because the Biden administration doesn't believe in immigration enforcement, they didn't properly vet them. And I think that what we want to do here is build the kind of international order where we can check China. We don't want to go to war with China, but certainly they're an adversary. I mean, they know, for example, the Chinese know that they're manufacturing tons of fentanyl they're letting come into our country. Kamala Harris has done nothing about this. She should apply diplomatic and economic leverage over the Chinese to stop manufacturing this fentanyl, which then comes into the Mexican drug cartels. We could do so much more. Fentanyl is not easy to manufacture, Margaret, and if Harris was applying proper leverage to the Chinese and to the Mexican drug cartels.
What's your vision of how you do that? I
think you walk into Beijing, you talk to Xi Jinping, and you say your entire economy is going to collapse unless you get access to American markets. You need to take this fentanyl seriously, or we are going to impose serious tariffs and economic penalties for not following our laws and not helping us stem the flow of this deadly poison. I think that we have a powerful economy, Margaret, with the best workers in the entire world. If we need to fight a trade war with the Chinese, we will fight it and we will win it. But we cannot do what Kamala Harris has done, which is be so terrified of using the economic power that we have that she's not even willing to stop the flow of this deadly poison coming into our country. I think that President Trump gets along with world leaders, and there's nothing wrong with him complimenting them as people if it makes him more effective diplomatically. And there's an irony here, because you're better able to lay down the law like President Trump did if you actually have a good relationship with people and they trust you to follow your word. We have to remember that Democrats, including Kamala Harris, attacked Donald Trump for having a good relationship with Vladimir Putin. Well, when Donald Trump was president, Vladimir Putin didn't invade another country. When Kamala Harris was vice president, he did. So maybe they should take a lesson from Trump's playbook about diplomatic legitimacy, because I think Donald Trump got a lot done because world leaders respected him.
Well, there you go. There is JD Vance on CBS News, Face the Nation, laying out the policy platform for the Trump Vance ticket. He was on several other talking head shows on Sunday, laying out the truth about what they plan to do once they get into office, something Kamala Harris and Walz have not done and probably won't do, because it'll affect obviously them in the polling if they try to articulate any policy positions, especially answering any hard questions. So I appreciate you joining me for this redo with the JD Vance interview from Face the Nation. All right, see you tomorrow.